are gathered here to witness the inauguration ceremony of the annual academic sessions of Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine 2021. Please rise as the ceremonial procession enters the hall. Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine, established in 2016, is a professional college having membership of most physicians working in all corners in Sri Lanka. The physicians have worked tirelessly during the COVID-19 pandemic in provision of health services and in their role as advocates. The annual academic sessions is another aspect that fulfills the college mission in facilitating and in empowering research and medical education among trainees and physicians. Ladies and gentlemen, I warmly welcome all of you to the inauguration ceremony of the annual academic sessions 2021 of Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine. We Sri Lankans take a lot of pride in our traditions. To ceremonially commence today's proceedings, I would like to invite the following dignitaries to light the lamp of learning. The chief guest today, Secretary of Ministry of Health, Major General Sanjeev Munasinghe. Guest of honor, Director General of Health Services, Dr. Asela Gunawardena. President of Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine, Dr. Harsha Sangstrom. Past presidents of the college, Dr. Vasantha Disanayake, Professor Tilak Veeraratne, Professor Tilak Jayalat, President-elect Dr. Ganaka Senaratne, Treasurer of the College Dr. Priyamali Jayasekara, and the Honorary Joint Secretaries Dr. Indika Botheju and Dr. Tushara Matthias. Thank you very much. I would like to invite the following dignitaries to take their seats at the head table. Chief guest of the event, Major General Sanjeeva Munasinghe. Guest of honor, Dr. Asela Gunawardena. The President of the College, Dr. Harsha Satish Chandra. Our orator today, Senior Professor Anuja Premawardena. And the Honorary Joint Secretaries of the College, Dr. Indika Boteju and Tushara Matthias. Please keep standing for the national anthem. Thank you, everyone. I would like to invite the President of the Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine, Dr. Harsha Satish Chandra, to deliver the welcome address.
Good evening to you all. Chief guest, Major General Dr. Sanjeeva Munasinghe, Secretary, Ministry of Health. Guest of honor, Professor George Abrahams, President, American College of Physicians. Guest of honor, Dr. Asela Gunawardena, Director General Health Services, Ministry of Health. Our orator delivering the Professor V. Varuganam oration today, Senior Professor Anuja Premawardena. Dr. Sunil D. Alvis, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Health. Dr. Lakshmi Somatunga, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Health, and the President, Sri Lanka College of Community Physicians. members of the Council for the year 2021, members of the Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine, consultant colleagues, dear friends, and ladies and gentlemen. I warmly welcome you all to the inauguration ceremony of SIMCON 21, the annual academic sessions of the Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine. It is undoubtedly the highlight of our year's program, as is the case with any professional college. We are honored to have the presence of Dr. Sanjeeva Munasinghe, Secretary, Ministry of Health, as our chief guest today. I thank you very much on behalf of the college and the council for taking time away from your busy schedule to grace this occasion as the chief guest. I must thank the American College of Physicians for endorsement of our annual academic sessions. I deeply appreciate the support given by Professor George Abraham, its president, by accepting our invitation to be a guest of honor. Some eminent speakers of the American College of Physicians will also be sharing their expertise with us during the Congress, further strengthening the ties of the two colleges. I deeply appreciate the gesture of Dr. Asela Gunawardena, Director General Health Services of the Ministry of Health, in agreeing to be a guest of honor. Your physical presence today at a time when you are deeply involved in the pandemic response is a matter of great encouragement to us. I take this opportunity to thank Senior Professor Anuja Premawardena, the orator who would be delivering the Professor V. Varugunam oration a little later today, which is obviously the highlight of the evening. I thank Dr. Sunil Dialvis, Additional Secretary, Medical Services, Ministry of Health, and Dr. Lakshmi Somatunga, Additional Secretary, Public Health Services, Ministry of Health, for accepting our invitation to be here with us. We deeply appreciate the presence of all the other high officials of the Ministry of Health, including the Deputy Director Generals and directors. The presence of presidents of other colleges is a source of inspiration to us. We deeply value the presence of all our consultant colleagues and their help at all times. If I say that this year has been challenging, that would be an understatement. The vagaries of the pandemic have made planning and execution of activities a nightmare. Notwithstanding all that, the Council has carried out successfully a full program of activities with much dedication and adaptability. I would be referring to some of those activities linked to the pandemic response a little later in my speech. The culmination of all those efforts, the veritable jewel in the crown, is the staging of the annual academic sessions. If I am briefly allowed the luxury of going down memory lane, I would point to the birth of our professional body in the year 2016 as the Sri Lanka Society of Internal Medicine. First annual sessions were held the following year in the picturesque hill capital Kandy. A unique feature of our college is that the presidency rotates among the cities of Kandy, Colombo, and Galle, in recognition of the fact that our members, the specialists in internal medicine, are spread far and wide in our Emerald Isle. Within a short span of time, we have transformed ourselves to a college with a membership of nearly 500 consultants playing a lead role in the care of our patients. With the establishment of the college office in the premises of the new Postgraduate Institute of Medicine building early this year, activities could be better coordinated for the benefit of members and patients alike. The scope of internal medicine is vast, and its practitioner has to be versatile. An internist should be adept at handling both acute and chronic medical problems, and is often required to unravel medical mysteries with a mixture of art and science. Therefore, it is a specialty in its own right, possessing many features unique to it. At the beginning of the year, the Council selected as our theme integrating medical expertise for optimal patient care amid a pandemic. Little did we realize then that the theme would be still relevant by the end of the year. The pandemic has certainly woven an intricate web around our lives and livelihoods, leaving us struggling to extricate ourselves, literally and metaphorically, leaving us gasping for breath. Exactly when we would be able to break free is uncertain, but there is no doubt that the after effects of the pandemic would weigh us down for many years to come. Therefore, mitigation measures should be carefully thought of in advance. On the invitation of the Ministry of Health, the college has played an important advocacy role in pandemic-related matters. Its technical expertise was sought on many occasions, and the president and the college members formed integral parts of many committees. It would be a fair assessment that the college made a vital contribution to the pandemic response. Special mention should be made of its participation in the Director General Health Services Expert Committee on Clinical Management, which formulated the National COVID-19 Treatment Guideline. Its role in the Advisory Committee on Communicable Diseases should also be highlighted, as it is that body that advises the Ministry of Health on COVID-19 vaccination-related matters. The college was of the view that direct and clear communication with the public was essential to mitigate the effects of the pandemic. The college organized a series of webinars to educate the public on COVID-19 related issues, ranging from limiting virus transmission to vaccination. The webinars were well received as gauged by the enthusiastic participation. Members of the college participated in numerous discussions on COVID-19 related matters over electronic media. This was important as the public tended to receive and adhere better to messages given by professionals. This was actually a global observation. The reality is that even after the pandemic ends, the virus would continue to linger in our communities, adversely affecting the non-immune and restricting lives of others. So how should we move forward? To answer that, we should reflect on how the virus has disrupted health systems in particular and communities in general. I would attempt to further examine the former as it is well within our scope. Severe COVID-19 has taken a heavy toll globally as judged by the millions of deaths. But how about its impact on non-COVID morbidity and mortality? It is a fact that patients have largely stayed away from hospitals out of fear of contracting the virus. This has led to deaths at home or late presentations of particularly cardiovascular illness with resultant high mortality. Poor attendance at clinics has further exacerbated the problem, leading to delayed or non-identification of red flags. The standards of care maintained by health systems globally have inevitably dropped due to pandemic constraints. Routine surgeries have got postponed. Cancer care has suffered with altered treatment protocols, limiting surgical options, and in certain instances, using chemotherapy in advance. Dosing intervals of chemotherapy have been increased on occasions to minimize hospital visits. Preventive health has not been spared, with an alarming drop in the vaccination rates in some parts of the world. Cancer screening programs have been adversely affected. Care of other infectious diseases has felt the impact too, with control programs for TB and malaria being affected. Governments around the world have, as we have done in Sri Lanka, pumped in funds to develop acute care capacity of hospitals. This includes commissioning of new ICUs, HDUs, and provision of additional health staff with training. If we take a closer look, the enhanced facilities leave us with the potential to reduce morbidity and mortality of many diseases. But realizing that potential is another matter and would require meticulous planning and good execution. Post-pandemic regeneration is a popular phrase now. Ideally, the aim should be to regenerate to a point that is further advanced than where we were before. If we take the local context, the pre-pandemic state of healthcare is not what we should strive to achieve, although we did boast of one of the better healthcare systems in the region. We should probably set new targets to achieve and work diligently towards realizing those. For example, our ICU and HDU capacity was greatly strengthened by the Ministry of Health with the aid of professional bodies. Maintaining and enhancing that capacity would require sustained efforts through recruitment of staff and other resources. If we are able to double the ICU HDU capacity compared to pre-pandemic levels, we would have achieved much. If we consider our laboratory services, it is not an exaggeration to say that we have advanced greatly. If we could sustain the present capacity and build on it, we would be in a better position to counter future threats. It should also be noted that capabilities of health and allied staff of all categories have improved tremendously over the past year and a half. This is perhaps the greatest resource we have developed during the course of the pandemic. It is now time to harness that for better delivery of healthcare for our patients. We have the capacity to invigorate our health system while making it more resilient to shocks as we experience with the pandemic. Resilience should not be only at health system level, although that is a prerequisite. It should also be at an institutional level and an individual level. Thus, resilience of all health staff should be inculcated and developed. What role could the specialist in internal medicine play in all of this? The short answer would be much. The internist is at the front line, fighting several battles at the same time. Not only does he have to contend with the ravaging virus and its effects on the helpless patients, but he has also got to mitigate the effects of the cardiovascular pandemic that threatens to engulf us. So he has to self-improve, deepen knowledge, fine-tune skills, innovate, and above all, adapt. So resilience, in a sense, starts with self. It is all within his capability to achieve as long as he is mindful of it. Another aspect begs our attention. As providers of healthcare and men and women of science, we should attempt to discern the fine balance of nature, specifically its ecosystems. SARS coronavirus 2 sprang up in the first place because we lost biodiversity on our planet due to our indiscriminate actions. It would be futile to spend our time and energy developing new drugs and vaccines for microbes without addressing that fundamental flaw. Therefore, post-pandemic regeneration should center around preservation of delicate ecosystems while attempting to regain ground lost to the pandemic. I must pay a special tribute to all members of the Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine who are battling the pandemic at institutions that span the length and breadth of our country. Let me also pay tribute to all categories of health staff and other frontline workers for their immense contribution to counter this pandemic. Our sessions began on the 14th of November with a pre-Congress workshop on point-of-care ultrasound held at the Kothlawala Defence University Hospital. It enabled senior registrars and consultants to sharpen their skills of performing point-of-care ultrasound, which is fast becoming an essential tool in the armory of the internist. This morning, we had our second pre-congress for registrars and senior registrars at the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine. The registrars had a workshop on how to pass MD, and the senior registrars had a session on navigating SR training. I invite you to participate in the main congress scheduled over the next 2 days at the Cinnamon Grand. I'm hopeful that the scientific deliberations over the coming days would enrich the knowledge of the participants, which would in turn enhance the care of our patients. To end, I would like to quote the great philosopher Socrates. I quote, "The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new." What he said many centuries ago holds true even today as we battle the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Next, I would like to invite our guest of honor, Professor George Abraham, who's the president of American College of Physicians, who's joining us all the way from United States of America to address the gathering.
Greetings from the American College of Physicians. My name is George Abraham, and I'm honored to serve as the current president of the American College of Physicians. I bring you warm greetings from the United States, especially at the occasion of the Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine's SimCon 2021. I want to particularly congratulate Dr. Harsha Satish Chandra as the president of the Sri Lanka College of Medicine, and Professor Tushara Matthias, who's the conference organizer, for putting together this wonderful potpourri of internal medicine offering for the physicians in Sri Lanka and hopefully for other parts of the world. We are honored to be partners with you in your delivery of care as well as in the practice of internal medicine. The ACP has had a strong relationship with the Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine since 2016 when you formed as a college. And we are honored that we've had visitors from Sri Lanka visit us for the internal medicine meetings that we have held every year. Unfortunately, this year was virtual, but we are optimistic that next year will be in person. Thank you for allowing me to offer a few words of reflections as we ponder on the combined topic that you have chosen, which is how do we offer care together in different parts of the world, and how can we work together to provide that care? It's unfortunate that we are meeting together on Zoom as opposed to meeting in person where we could be more face-to-face and interact. Clearly, the coronavirus has had its toll of our healthcare system on the healthcare landscape here in the United States, and I'm sure in Sri Lanka as well. Unfortunately, masks have become part of our dress and attire, and we have to wear masks all the time, as I'm sure you do too in your respective places of work, as well as your life. However, what the pandemic has highlighted among many things is the issues of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, which is so critical to the delivery of healthcare and which has sort of laid bare the challenges of delivery of healthcare, especially in a pandemic such as ours. I am sure you see the same challenges that we see. The fact that not all people are equally able to access all of healthcare, because of either financial or socioeconomic or other challenges, that people don't get equitable care. And so different people get differing levels of care depending on their affluence, access, etc. That we are not able to include all of our caregivers and our patients in the larger family, the healthcare system, and definitely the socioeconomic, financial, and other challenges have created justice issues where equitable care is not delivered. The college early on in the pandemic found itself in the position of having to make decisions and to be able to unite the larger internal medicine community, both within the United States and around the world, by not only providing them up-to-date knowledge, but also providing them other resources to be able to provide care. So the Annals of Internal Medicine started putting together and offering free access to a series of singular articles, especially those which would change the practice of medicine, not only in the United States, but elsewhere. We created a whole series of COVID-19 vaccine resources. We have created a series of fora around it. Our latest forum, which is coming up, has 4,000 participants from all over the world, including a host of physicians from Sri Lanka. And so this has been an up-to-date resource to be able to provide current understanding of COVID-19 and its care, and to offer opportunities for cost-effective care. We created a series of living practice points. I am one of the co-authors of that series, and they are rapid development of an evidence-based review. So they're not intended to be the current cutting-edge treatment guideline, but they're intended to be a robust evidence review to show what really works, what can we rely on, where is the science sound enough, given the short duration of about 20 months or so that we've known this pandemic, and that where can we rely on information. We have seen burnout as a result of the pandemic, COVID fatigue, whether it be the caregiver fatigue, whether it be the family member fatigue, whether it be the stress of just even being a caregiver to patients, both in an outpatient and an inpatient setting. And so we created this emotional support hub where we could offer resources which people can use to develop techniques of resilience so as to be able to counteract the emotional and physical fatigue of working long hours without breaks. We also have a series of podcasts. The podcasts cover a variety of topics, and they are also often offered free, especially around COVID-19, so as to be able to offer free knowledge. We have several publications, be it monthly, be it more frequently, and several book titles that might be of use for physicians and or other allied health practitioners to use in their day-to-day practice. And we offer a free member benefit called ACP JournalWise, which collates about 120 top journals and pulls together summaries of the big and most cogent articles to quickly provide a snapshot and to provide some quick points which people can use without having to go through each journal themselves. We ask that people can stay connected on ACP, whether it be on social media, medical Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all sorts of other places where they can look for resources and continue to connect with the college. So your college and our college work together to be able to share these resources with all of us who are in the common task of taking care of patients. We recognize that there is not enough equity in the healthcare system globally. We in the US have a luxury of vaccine availability to us, while many other parts of the world are struggling to obtain vaccine, and that to efficacious vaccine. And we feel guilty of that, especially when in our country, people are turning away and refusing vaccine, and we could turn that vaccine over to other countries to help end this pandemic. We clearly do recognize that we need to work together, and that unless everyone, the whole world, gets enough vaccine so as to be able to create enough of herd immunity globally, this pandemic is not going to end. So it is not going to happen just because a few affluent countries are able to share vaccine with everyone. It is when all of us get vaccine, and especially the most vulnerable in all our parts of the world. So till then, we are still with masks. We continue to wear masks, and here is information from the CDC on how to use double masks, so how to make our masks safer. We will continue to isolate. We will often grieve in private because we are not able to take care of all our people, and we are going to have losses, be it family, extended family, or our patients. But till then, let's reach out with a global handshake and say the Internal Medicine 2022 meeting of the American College of Physicians is planned to be held in person in Chicago in April 28th to 30th, 2022. And so I heartily welcome as many of you as can travel to come and attend the meeting. You will be able to meet people, make connections, get up-to-date resources, and I hope you will really have a wonderful time. Till then, I wish your meeting all success. Thank you for staying in touch with us at the American College of Physicians. We extend a warm welcome as well as a hearty handshake as you start your meetings. And we thank you for being heroes in terms of taking care of people worldwide and easing the pandemic. I'm grateful for your support, and I hope in person we can meet, hopefully in Chicago in 2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Next, I would like to invite our guest of honor, Director General of Health Services, Dr. Asela Gunawardena, to address the gathering.
Good evening to all of you. Chief guest, Major General Dr. Sanjeev Munasinghe, Secretary Health, Ministry of Health. Guest of honor, Dr. George M. Abraham, the President, American College of Physicians. The orator today, Professor Anuja Premawardena, Senior Professor in Medicine, University of Kelaniya. Dr. Harsha Sachithandra, the President, Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine. Past presidents, council members, and members of the college, additional secretaries, deputy director generals, all the directors of Ministry of Health, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure and privilege to be here with all of you today and address this distinguished gathering on the inauguration of annual conference of Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine. The members of Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine have a very strong hold and a long history in the Sri Lankan allopathic medical history. Through the college emerged as a separate entity in the recent past. I have good memories and cordial relationships with the physicians throughout my medical administrative career, consisting about 500 physicians in the college. They provide immense service to the people at OPDs, ETUs, HDUs, and ICUs and the wards of the hospitals island-wide. Mr. President, I, from my bottom of my heart, thank you and all your college members for coming forward to support the Ministry of Health in the battle against the COVID-19 pandemic. You all played a leading role in the COVID operational cells in the hospitals. Many have contributed and still contributing to the various committees established by Ministry of Health I think a few have already mentioned by Dr. Satis. There are expert committees on clinical management, an advisory committee on communicable diseases, an expert committee of disposal of dead bodies, and various committees on non-communicable diseases are few. Also, I appreciate the advisory role your membership plays in current COVID-19 vaccination program. These supports not only contribute to the fastest vaccine rollout in the country, but also in reducing the number of deaths and severe illness due to the COVID-19. Your commitment towards research and continuous training in the fellow medical staff keep the Sri Lankan health sector at a higher standards. I am sure that your college will provide the continuous support to the Ministry of Health in future too with the same spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 has taught us many lessons. We need to move forward. We need to rethink our strategies. We need to provide health service continuously for all. I think this year theme that you have selected, integrating medical expertise for optimal patient care amid pandemic, is very timely. I hope that your college membership will play a leading role in integrating other specialties in providing the best care in which both patients and the caregivers are satisfied. I take this opportunity to thank the President and the members of the Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine, and I would like to wish all the best for the President and the College and success for the annual conference in coming 2 days. Also, I wish all the success in future endeavors of Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, I would like to invite our chief guest for the inauguration ceremony, Secretary of the Ministry of Health, Major General Dr. Sanjeeva Munasinghe, to address the gathering.
The President, Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine, Dr. Harsha Sathichandra, the guest of honor, Dr. George M. Ibrahim, the President, American College of Physicians, the guest of honor, Dr. Asela Gunawardena, Director General of Health Services, Ministry of Health, Senior Professor Anuja Premawardena, the orator today, past presidents, council members, and members of Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine, senior officials from Ministry of Health, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. At the outset, let me thank the President and the Council of Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine for inviting me as a chief guest of this inauguration ceremony of 5th annual academic sessions of Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine. I am deeply honored and privileged to be here. I would like to extend my best wishes to Sri Lanka Internal Medicine Conference 2021, SIMCOM 2021, the annual academic sessions of Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine, which is organized in collaboration with American College of Physicians. Looking at the wonderful academic accolade, there is no doubt it would be a huge success. The theme of the college this year, as the President and Dr. Gunawardena mentioned, which is integrating medical expertise for optimal patient care amid the pandemic. reflected through the immense work of the members of the college, working throughout the year amidst the pandemic tirelessly. When I look at the theme, I realize that you must have chosen this in honor of the specialists in internal medicine who work relentlessly in resource-limited settings. The professional services rendered during COVID-19 pandemic by the President, Council, and the members of the Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine were commendable. It had been a great challenge for us to face the COVID-19 pandemic. Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine wholeheartedly supported the Ministry of Health to ease the burden. And when it came to patient care, your members were in the forefront. All the members of Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine embraced the challenge with grace, and I am proud to say that your team was able to resolve most of the difficulties related to clinical care. Apart from that, you help us immensely in different ways. Sought out massive amounts of donations from all over the world. The trust public had upon you all, the college was very apparent. It is with great respect I appreciate the President, Council, and all the members for disseminating new knowledge among fellow physicians and other health staff to deliver most updated clinical care for the patients during this difficult era. Adapting to rules and regulations of new normal, you all conducted CME activities through webinars, addressing both public and healthcare workers. In addition to your members, took the lead in educating our pre-interns, interns, and post-interns through various programs conducted through the Ministry of Health. I appreciate your active role at various guideline development committees, technical expert committees, and technical evaluation committees in the ministry as well. I applaud the fact that you still had time to engage in the research work by getting the specialist physicians involved in multi-centered research trials as well. The key lesson we learned in the recent past is understanding the importance of teamwork to overcome every possible obstacles. At this juncture, delivering shared care with the assistance of other professionals and the members of healthcare sector with mutual understanding of momentous in overcoming clinical and administrative challenges. I believe that SIMCOM 2021 will further strengthen the integrated medical care and will enrich the good clinical governance in Sri Lanka in future. I take this opportunity to appreciate the effort taken by the President and the Council of Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine for organizing SIMCOM 2021 during this critical time to enhance the scientific knowledge among medical fraternity. I wish all the very best to local and international resource persons and all the delegates from various fields of academia participating in SIMCOM 2021. May you all have a great scientific meeting. Have a pleasant evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Next in the agenda is the awards ceremony. I would like to invite the Honorary Joint Secretary, Dr. Indika Boteju, to read out the names.
Good evening. Chief guest Dr. Sanjeev Munasinghe, Secretary, Ministry of Health, and Dr. Harsha Satish Sandra, President, Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine. Guest of honor, Dr. George M. Abraham, President, American College of Physicians. Guest of honor, Dr. Asela Gunawardana, Director General of Health Services. Distinguished invitees at the head table, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great pleasure I announce the recipient of the Most Innovative Service Improvement Project 2021. It is with great pleasure I announce the recipient of the Most Innovative Service Improvement Project 2021, Dr. W.M. Jagat Pushpakumara, MBBS MD, Medicine, MRCP UK, MRCP London, and Consultant Physician in Internal Medicine, Base Hospital, Wellavaya, for his innovative project that led to establishment of COVID-19 treatment centers at Base Hospital, Wellavaya, District Hospital Buttala, and National Youth Center at Wellavaya. Dr. Jagat Pushpakumara graduated from the Faculty of Medicine, University of Ruhuna in 2009 with a second-class upper division. He has also received distinctions in pathology, microbiology, parasitology, and a gold medal in community medicine. He obtained his MD in general medicine from Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, University of Colombo in 2016, and obtained his post-MD training from Basingstoke and North Hampshire Hospitals in United Kingdom. He worked as a specialist registrar in respiratory medicine, and he has a special interest in respiratory medicine. By the time he left UK in early 2020, he was a key member in the COVID treatment team at Basingstoke Hospital, which motivated him to continue the best possible care for the local COVID-19 patients in a low-resource setting. He did establish COVID-19 treatment unit at Base Hospital, Wellavaya, and extended the care by establishing a level 2 COVID treatment hospital at District Hospital, Buttala, and an intermediate COVID care unit at National Youth Center, Wellavaya. During the surge of COVID-19 patients, it was difficult to find beds for respiratory support for the patients at Wellavaya. However, he managed to hold hands with Ministry of Health and other donor organizations and commenced short-term mechanical ventilation facility at Base Hospital, Wellavaya, and District Hospital, Buttala. In addition to new 5 STU beds at Base Hospital, Wellavaya, he could establish 110-bedded new COVID treatment center, including 12 STU beds at District Hospital, Buttala, and a new COVID intermediate care center at Youth Center, Wellavaya. It was a challenge to find funds and equipments for the newly established COVID units. His humble request for equipments and donations via social media and newspaper articles were successful, and he could obtain donations from local and overseas donors. Staff training for specialist care was another challenge, for he had to run series of training sessions to almost all health staff members at Buttala COVID Hospital on respiratory care for critically ill patients with COVID-19. His dedicated efforts led to very successful outcome with the support of all other officials of Ministry of Health and kind-hearted donors. His leading role to improve patient care at COVID treatment facilities at Base Hospital, Wellavaya, District Hospital, Buttala, and COVID Intermediate Care Center at Wellavaya is commendable. Mr. President, sir, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to present Dr. W.N. Jagat Pushpakumara for the Most Innovative Service Improvement Project Award 2021 for his dedicated service and valuable contribution towards COVID-19 patients. Now, I would like cordially invite to our chief guest today, Dr. Sanjeeva Munasinghe, to present the award to Dr. Jagat Pushpakumara. Thank you, sir. President and the Council of Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine, ladies and gentlemen, next it is with great pleasure I announce the award for the best publication by a physician for the year 2020. For the paper titled A Descriptive Study on Sepsis, Causes, Outcomes and Adherence to Guidelines on Patients with Sepsis at a Tertiary Care Hospital in Sri Lanka by Antushara Matthias, J. Indra Kumar, Tarushi Ranasinghe, Shalini Vijayakon, Charuni Yashodhara. I would like cordially invite to our chief guest today, Dr. Sanjeeva Munasinghe, to present the award for the best publication by a physician. Dr. Tushara Matthias will accept the award on behalf of the authors. Thank you, sir. President and the Council of Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine, ladies and gentlemen. Now I would like to announce the winners of COVID video contest. I would like to invite Dr. Harsha Satish Chandra, President, Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine, to present the certificates to the winners of COVID-19 video contest. We had three age groups, age 10 to 16, age 17 to 21 years, and university students. From the age group 10 to 16 years, first place goes to Hiranya Devindi Gadia Punchiheva. Second place goes to Janice S.B. Damunupola. Third place goes to a group where we have two participants, Subendran Krishnamethan, Ragulilan Sillaya. Age category 70 to 21 years. We have two places for first place. Litsa, two names for first place, Litsa Munasinghe and Gilhara Munasinghe. They will have the certificates in absentia. Age category 70 to 21 years. Second place goes to three candidates, Biliti Sandamini Vitanage, Saranya Sisandi Algama, Nishmi Sihara Vitana. On behalf of them, Saranya Sisandi Algama will receive the certificate. we have Priyanti Movinta Disanayaka as the third place winner. Ladies and gentlemen, from the university category, for the first place, we have two names, which is done in a group. Mr. K.D. Tushara Madhushan, Ms. Saumya D. Veerasurya. Mr. K.D. Tushara Madhushan will receive the certificate. Under university category, second place goes to Kalinga Ruwandi Sudeshana De Silva. Third place, we have two candidates, Sashini Samarasinghe and Tharundi Asanka Ekneligoda. Sashini Samarasinghe will receive the certificate. Thank you, sir. And with that, now we conclude the presentation of awards, SIMCON 2021.
Thank you very much, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, next in the agenda is the highlight of the evening. Prestigious Professor T. Varugunam Memorial Oration. I would like to invite the President, Dr. Harsha Sasishtandra, to introduce the orator.
Gives me great pleasure to introduce Professor V. Varugunam oration. Orator today is Senior Professor Anuja Padmanatha Premawardena. Anuja Premawardena is a specialist in internal medicine and Senior Professor in Medicine at University of Kelaniya. He obtained a DPhil from University of Oxford in Clinical Medicine in the field of hemoglobinopathy research in 2002 and has continued clinical work and research in the field of hemoglobinopathies and iron metabolism. He had his primary and secondary education at Trinity College, Kandy, and undergraduate education at the University of Peradeniya, where he was placed first in the batch in all exams, passing with 10 distinctions and won 10 medals, prizes, and scholarships. At the final MBBS examination in 1992, he was placed first in the All-Ireland Merit List. In 1997, he passed the MD in General Medicine. He was placed first in the batch and won the John Stokes Gold Medal. He was awarded the Undergraduate Commonwealth Foundation Elective Bursary in 1991 to Kenya and Commonwealth Scholarship to Oxford, UK in 1998. In 1994, he joined the Department of Medicine, Faculty of Medicine, University of Kelaniya as a lecturer and has risen through the ranks to be promoted to his current position as a senior professor in 2018. He was the head of the Department of Medicine between 2008 and 2011. In 2003, he set up the first ever dedicated thalassemia diagnosis center in Sri Lanka, followed by the only adolescent and adult thalassemia care unit in the country in 2006. This network was further strengthened with the commencement of the molecular laboratory in 2009. He has an ongoing collaboration with the universities of Oxford and Toronto, spanning over 23 years, studying patients with hemoglobin E beta thalassemia, which has become his main area of research and publication. Currently, he has published 125 papers and abstracts. He has an H index of 21 and an I-10 index of 35 at present. He has delivered 3 orations, SLMA orations in 2004 and 2018, and the PEMSA invited oration lecture in 2018. He has also been the recipient of the Presidential Award for Research for 16 years. In 2013, he was elected as a Fellow of the Sri Lanka National Academy of Sciences. It gives me great pleasure now in inviting Senior Professor Anuja Premawardena to deliver the prestigious Professor V. Varuganam oration today.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Satis, for those generous words of introduction. Members of the family of Professor Varuganam, chief guests, guests of honor, members of the head table, council members of the Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine, ladies and gentlemen. I consider this a great honor to be being able to deliver this prestigious T. Varuganam oration at the Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine year 2021. The man in whose name this oration is named after, Professor Thambippille Varuganam, is certainly no ordinary man. He founded the Department of Medicine in the Faculty of Medicine, University of Peradeniya. It's a place which gave me confidence to face the future as a very nervous medical student. I don't think I've had the fortune to meet this man, this great man. He was born in the 1930s to a wealthy and educated family in Batticaloa. His father was a well-established general practitioner. He completed, the young Varuganam completed his education at Royal College, where he excelled not only in his studies, but had a very keen interest in rugby. In fact, he played for the first 15 rugby team, which beat Trinity, winning the Bradby Shield. This is a trophy which he held so precious than probably most of his academic achievements as well. He entered medical school, University of Colombo, after a very successful academic career in his college. And there too, he had an excellent academic record, completing his undergraduate education, obtaining a first class with a distinction in medicine. After a brief stint in the government hospital, I think in the National Hospital, which was probably called Colombo General Hospital then, He was headhunted by Sir Nicholas Artigala, the then Vice Chancellor of University of Peradeniya, and was given the unenviable task of forming the Faculty of Medicine's Department of Medicine as its first lecturer. He took this on with great courage, and when he finally left Peradeniya in 1980 for a higher post in the WHO as a tropical medicine research unit, the Department of Medicine was in a very strong place indeed. Professor Varugunam was a pioneer in medical education in this country. He was in fact instrumental in setting up the Kandy Society of Medicine, the second such organization after the SLMA. He was also key and instrumental in setting up the first medical education unit in a university system in this country, together with the other legendary figure, Professor Senaka Bibile. Much later, he was called upon by the then government to set up the Batticaloa campus, or the medical faculty in Batticaloa, where he subsequently became the Chancellor of the Eastern University. PEMSA, the most successful alumni organization in a medical school in this country, where I'm proud to be a member of, is also his brainchild. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly humbled to walk in the shadow of this great man. And let me now move on to my lecture today. The topic is Hemoglobin Variants in Sri Lanka, the Untold Story. Now, globin disorders are globally the commonest monogenic disorders to affect the human race. There are two such disorders, thalassemia and structural variants. Now, in the hemoglobin molecule, there are two components, the heme component, which carries oxygen, and the globin component, the protein, which consists of alpha chains and beta chains. Now, a normal human being has 2 beta genes and 4 alpha genes, which code for these proteins. Now, it's very interesting that the output of these 4 beta genes have to match, the 4 alpha genes in fact, have to match the output of the 2 beta genes. If I can have the pointer moving, please. In the normal person, the output of the 4 alpha genes will produce an equal amount of protein to match the output of the 4 beta genes. This is not moving, but yeah, thank you. Anyway, so in beta thalassemia, what happens is the output of the, due to a mutation of the beta genes, the beta protein production becomes reduced, and as you can see in the diagram, there is a relative excess of the alpha chains. Now that spells trouble. There is a globin chain imbalance, and this globin chain imbalance leads to precipitation of the excess alpha chains. Now, these precipitants of alpha chains in beta thalassaemic cells would be sensed as abnormal cells by the reticuloendothelial cells and would be immediately scavenged, and that is the basis of hemolysis. And because this happens in the bone marrow, we call this ineffective erythropoiesis. Degree of ineffective erythropoiesis, i.e. the degree of hemolysis, decides the severity of thalassemia. Now, based on the degree of ineffective erythropoiesis, thalassemia syndromes are categorized into 3 main types. Those who have 1 mutation from out of the 2 beta mutations are considered to be beta thalassemia carriers. They hardly have any ineffective erythropoiesis. Therefore, they have no symptoms, no signs. On the other hand, if you have 2 beta mutations, one from the mother and one from the father. This will lead to profound degrees of ineffective erythropoiesis, leading to severe anemia, and the children who are born with this will have transfusion-dependent thalassemia, which is also called thalassemia major. So these children will be born, and after about 3 months of age will be dependent on blood transfusions for the rest of their lives. Now, in between these two disorders is a condition which we call thalassemia intermedia. They have an intermediate degree of ineffective erythropoiesis, and this disorder will have an intermediate type of clinical picture which is extremely variable. They are not dependent on blood transfusions for survival. Therefore, this so-called thalassemia intermedia is also called non-transfusion dependent thalassemia, or NTDT. Now, hemoglobin variants are also disorders of the same alpha and the beta genes. And they are also just like in thalassemia due to mutations. But unlike in thalassemia, this does not cause reduction of protein production. Instead, it causes an alteration of structure, behavior, or stability of the protein. There are more than 100 types of hemoglobin variants described, but only a few of them are pathogenic. Most of the hemoglobin variants are silent or will cause only very mild anemia. And amongst the many variants described are HB Bassett, Kansas, S, C, D, E, O, all the letters of the alphabet. However, the most important structural variants are hemoglobin S and hemoglobin E. Hemoglobin S, or sickle hemoglobin, is found mainly amongst Africans, Arabs, and Indians, and wherever they have migrated to. Now, there are over 300 million people with sickle cell trait in the world. And in addition to that, 300,000 children are born with the severe disease, sickle cell anemia, every year, mostly in Africa, in Nigeria and the Congo, and also in neighboring India. Hemoglobin E, on the other hand, is exclusively an Asian disease. It's found in Southeast Asia and trickles down to eastern India and Sri Lanka and into the Maldives. It's not found anywhere else. Even in Pakistan and westward, it's not found. Now, the interest in structural variants in Sri Lanka started way back in the 1950s, when Dr. Herman Lehmann and Mary Catbush, British clinician scientists, had just discovered sickle cell in the tribal people in the Nilgiri Mountains in Tamil Nadu. The Blue Mountains, or the Nilgiri Mountains, are the home for the Kotas, Todas, Badgas, and Irulas. These are the tribal people in these mountains. And Herman Lehmann believed that the Ceylonese Veddas, the Aborigine people, must be descendants of these Nilgiri mountain tribes. So, in collaboration with Dr. R.L. Wickramasinghe, who was working at the MRI, he came down in pursuit of the Veddas to look for sickle cell in the Veddas. And he was in for a surprise, because instead of finding sickle in the Veddas, he found hemoglobin E in the Ceylonese. He went on to describe when he studied 9 pure and almost pure Veddas, he found hemoglobin E in 2 of them. And incidentally, this was only the 3rd report of hemoglobin E in the world. Herman Lehmann was bitten by the Vedda bug. He stayed on in the country and studied the Vedda populations for a bit longer. And he went on to make a statement that 10% of the Vedda population had hemoglobin E. And he then made an erroneous statement and said that if hemoglobin E is found in a Ceylonese, he had to be a Vedda. This was, of course, found to be untrue, proven to be untrue by people like Dr. Nagesh Nagaratnam and several others, when he found hemoglobin E in the Sinhalese, Tamils, and the Moors in Ceylon. Nagesh Nagaratnam was the first to describe E-beta thalassemia in Ceylon. in a family, E beta thalassemia is the compound heterozygosity. E from one mother and beta thalassemia from the father. Now, though E beta thalassemia was described by several other people in case reports, the true nature of this disease was not realized until the mid-1990s, until the arrival of this true legend, Professor Sir David Weatherall from University of Oxford. I was truly lucky to work with this great man as his PhD student. One of the first things we did was this limited survey of micromapping of hemoglobin disorders in this country in 1996. And much later, a more extensive micromapping in the entire country. And we found that hemoglobin E was the most extensive, most common structural variant in this country, which occurred at a rate of 0.5%. And based on this data, we guesstimated that there must be about 3,000 patients with thalassemia taking treatment in the country. And this essentially meant that there must be about 1,000 patients with E beta thalassemia in the country. In 1997, when we first stepped foot to Dr. Shantimali De Silva's pediatric clinic in Kurunegala, we were astounded by the variety of patients there. And here was this farmer who had actually accompanied his brother, and this man, 42 years of age, is from Nikavaratia. He had nothing wrong with him. He had just accompanied his brother, who had been diagnosed with thalassemia by Dr. Shantimali De Silva. He was 42 years of age, a haying govia or a chena cultivator, never been to a hospital for any illness. His mean hemoglobin was 7 grams per deciliter. Spleen was 2 centimeters in size. In the same clinic at the same time was this 9-year-old girl who had been diagnosed as thalassemia at the age of 3 years and had been asked to come for transfusions every month. But due to the prevailing transfusion practice of the transfusion service in the country, she was unable to access blood every month. She was able to get transfusions only every once in 4 or 5 months. And this is what happened. She was having this massive spleen and facial deformities. Her mean hemoglobin was 5.5. And this 32-year-old lady who had presented at the age of 12 years with abdominal pain to a surgeon. And the surgeon had diagnosed thalassemia and promptly removed the spleen. And since then, she has been getting blood transfusions every 6 months. And her mean hemoglobin was 5 grams. And she said she was absolutely fine with that. And she was working as a dispenser to a local family physician. Now, the strange thing was that this 32-year-old girl, the 9-year-old girl, and the farmer all had the same disease. They had E beta thalassemia. Now, it was very clear to us that hemoglobin E beta thalassemia was very variable, and that was already known. But what was not known was what are the complications that these patients are going to develop, and how will this disease affect survival, and how does this disease compare to diseases like thalassemia major and other types of non-transfusion dependent thalassemia. There was no research anywhere in the world which gave that information. Thalassemia major, there's enough information about survival. In fact, thalassemia major patients who are very well managed have very improving survival in good centers. For example, in countries like Greece, Italy, and Iran, the mean survival of thalassemia major is over 50 years. Now, there is enough information about management and outcome of non-transfusion dependent thalassemia other than E beta thalassemia, again from the Middle East and in the Mediterranean countries. So much so that there are guidelines for management of non-transfusion dependent thalassemia other than E beta thalassemia published by the Thalassemia International Federation. And this is so because of large pool studies from Middle Eastern and Mediterranean region like the Optimal Care study. In this group of NTDT patients, the median survival is up to 75 years. Unfortunately, for hemoglobin E beta thalassemia, there are very few long-term prospective studies and there are no studies on survival. This is not to say that we are the only people who have conducted studies on E beta thalassemia in the world. In fact, in 2017, a Thai group by Vip Viprakasit have published work on complications of E beta thalassemia, but there are no studies on survival. So way back in 1997, we started following up a group of 109 patients with E beta thalassemia in Kurunegala. In 2003, we analyzed their data for the first time after a 5-year follow-up, and we published the data in the Lancet. And 20-year analysis was done in December 2017, and the results will be published in the Lancet Global Health within the next 2 weeks. So in the era before 1995, there was no proper diagnosis in Sri Lanka for thalassemia besides clinical diagnosis and the primitive technique of hemoglobin electrophoresis. There were no facilities for HPLC or capillary electrophoresis. And there was no access to regular blood transfusion. This is because of the transfusion policy of the blood bank requesting replacement for every pint of blood. And there was hardly any chelation in the country until 1995. In fact, in 1995, the total quota of desferrioxamine ordered for the country was 500 vials. The blood banking system changed only in 1996, and the chelate availability has started to improve after the year 2000. So with these problems which existed in the management of E beta thalassemia and uncertain transfusion policies and very poor chelation, we revised the clinical management of the 109 patients and decided to stop transfusions in 84 out of the 109 patients. 25 of them were anyway not on transfusions. But the decisions on management was done in a dynamic fashion where the patients were observed by the clinical team every 3 months. Now, as I mentioned before, the first set of data after analysis were published in the Lancet in 2003. We looked at the patients based on clinical severity, categorized them based on growth and quality of life into severity groups. Now, this was the basis of my SLMA oration way back in 2004, so I don't wish to go into details of this, but in essence, at this stage, we knew that there was variability. There were patients who were mild, and there were patients who were severe, and the reasons for the mildness and the severity, we identified 4 distinct features. Those who were mild had presented later in life. The differences in the mean hemoglobin level between those who were mild and those who were severe was very trivial. In fact, it was only 6.5 versus 5.8. Both groups were living with severe anemia. Even though the hemoglobin level was not very different, the fetal hemoglobin level in the mild group was significantly higher compared to the severe group. And we also identified one genetic modifier called the XMN polymorphism, which seemed to drive this high fetal hemoglobin. So to recap, in 2003, we identified mild versus severe. The mild patients had presented late in life. Strangely, the difference in hemoglobin was not very different, but fetal hemoglobin was higher in the mild group, and the XMN polymorphism was the factor which we could identify which was driving the fetal hemoglobin production. 20 years later, in 2017 December, we reanalyzed the data. And so we started off with 109 patients, 54 males, 55 females. And over the period of 20 years, 29% of the patients had died. So we compared the factors which were different between those who died and those who survived. And we found that more males had died. those who had serious infections had died, those who had diabetes had died, more patients who had lot of transfusions had died, patients with a lower steady state hemoglobin had died, and patients with a high serum ferritin had died. Now, none of that was surprising. Low hemoglobin, a lot of blood, a lot of iron, a lot of infections, diabetes are the factors which were different between those who died and those who survived. Males had died, but that, let's leave it aside. For the first time, we had a survival data for E beta thalassemia in the world. The median survival of our cohort was 49.5 years. Commonest cause of death in the E beta thalassemia cohort in Sri Lanka was acute infection. This is completely different from all other cohorts across the world. Thalassemia patients in rest of the world die from heart failure, or NTDT patients die from malignancy. And in our cohort, it was due to acute infection. And for the first time, we were able to define thresholds which were associated with poor outcome. A low hemoglobin, mean hemoglobin less than 4.5, a high serum ferritin more than 1,300, a high liver iron concentration more than 5 predicted a high chance of death. Such data never existed. Now, as I told before, the study, the management was dynamic. We looked at these patients, we had taken them off transfusions. If they didn't do well, we had to put them back on transfusions. Some went on to regular transfusions, more than 8 for a year. Some went on to irregular transfusions, less than 8 for a year. So strangely, over a period of 20 years, 48% of the patients had not gone on any transfusions. They were able to be without any blood transfusions at all. 52% had gone back on transfusions. So ladies and gentlemen, if you think back, if thalassemia patients can be without blood transfusions for 20 years, surely they must be the good patients. So the outcome of those patients have to be better than the ones who had to go on blood transfusions. That is what we expected in the data. So we looked at the two different cohorts, the ones who went on blood, the ones who never wanted blood, to see whether our classification was truly objective. And it was. These two groups were clearly different. The ones who did not need blood transfusions at all were the ones who had presented late, there were less males. They are the ones with the XMN polymorphism, which we had identified from the earlier study. They needed less splenectomy. They had high mean steady state hemoglobin. And obviously, because they didn't get a lot of blood, their ferritins were lower. So these two groups were clearly different. But the most disturbing thing was the outcomes. The complications were not any different in those whom we considered to be good versus the ones whom we considered to be bad. The complications and even more disturbingly mortality were almost the same. So this is the first and the only longitudinal analysis for hemoglobin E beta thalassemia available so far in the world. The median survival of E beta thalassemia is 49.5, which is less than the general population in Sri Lanka. And this compares unfavorably to survival of other NTDT from the Middle Eastern and the Mediterranean country, which is 75 years. But this is certainly better than the current survival for thalassemia major in Sri Lanka, which is disappointingly only 13.2 years. And the commonest cause for death was infection, which is again very different from the rest of the world. And this is the first study to investigate the thresholds for survival in E beta thalassemia. We definitely have reconfirmed variability in E beta thalassemia. We have proven it is associated with reduced survival. We are also proving there's a high rate of complications, high rate of mortality, even in the groups which we consider to be the good groups. We have defined unsafe cutoff points which predict death. But unfortunately, we haven't been able to do what is most necessary in defining the desired hemoglobin, which improves survival. So for the last part of my talk, I'll switch gears to the other structural variant in this country, sickle cell. Now, Herman Lehmann was looking for sickle in Sri Lanka, but he failed to find it. And that honor went to the famous pediatrician, Professor C.C. De Silva. Professor C.C. De Silva in 1962, almost about a decade after Herman Lehmann found hemoglobin E, found a Sinhalese family with hemoglobin S in Batticaloa. Professor De Silva was fascinated with this discovery, having a Sinhalese family from Batticaloa with S. Professor De Silva was a pediatrician, but with a great interest in genetics. He already knew that sickle existed in Africans, so he concocted this theory that the ancestors of this Sinhalese family may have had some genetic dealings with the Africans who may have come with the British or the Dutch and who have used the Batticaloa port. And with that started the theory of African origin of sickle in Ceylon. Now, sickle has 5 genetic origins. There's an Indo-Arabic origin and 4 African origins. The 4 African origins are called Bantu, Benin, Senegal, and Cameroon. We know, I'm sure most of you know, that there is a colony of people in Sri Lanka of Putlam who is of African ancestry. But these people do not have sickle. So how come we have sickle in this country? Much later, in the 1980s, Dr. Nagesh Nagaratnam muddied the plot when he discovered a pocket of sickle in Hambantota. And he brought in a theory that the sickle in Hambantota may have been introduced by Arabs. And he used the term Hambang, Hambankarya as Moor, and the Arabs. And now we had 2 different theories, the African theory of sickle and the Arab theory of sickle. Now, though there have been multiple case reports of sickle, there have been no clear genotype, phenotype studies on sickle cell disease in this country. And that is where Tamal Darshana steps in. He was doing a PhD with us. Tamal Darshana is from Sri Jawadarapura University. And the project which he did was to look at all sickle cell disease patients we could lay our hands on. It essentially meant patients from Ragama, Kurunegala, Anuradhapura, Monragala, Hambantota, Ampara, Batticaloa. Basically, we went everywhere, met the patients, clinically examined them, and also took blood samples. And our results were published in the Orphanet Journal of Rare Diseases just last year. And we found 59 patients. And surprisingly, 15% of them were homozygous sickle. And Darshana went on to describe 2 sickle pockets in Sri Lanka. A southern pocket involving Hambantota, Monragala, Buttala area, and a northwestern pocket involving Putlam, Kurunegala, and Anuradhapura. And to answer the question of the origin of sickle, we had the technology which Professor De Silva and Nagesh Nagaratnam did not have at that time, haplotype analysis, and we were able to prove that majority of patients with sickle in this country are of the Arab-Indian haplotype. But there were 4 individuals, interestingly, who had the African haplotype, 3 Benin and 1 Bantu. So, ladies and gentlemen, I presented to you work carried out by us spanning over a period of about 25 years. Studies of hemoglobin E and hemoglobin S structural variants. We hope we have added new knowledge on the clinical management of hemoglobin E beta thalassemia. And we've definitely defined what is bad for the management of hemoglobin E beta thalassemia. But unfortunately, we have not been able to define the optimum treatment for the disease. That is something which needs to be done in the future. We've also unraveled the mysteries of the origin of HBS in Sri Lanka, but yet again, we haven't been able to do the full job. We don't know whether it is Arab or Indian in origin. So there's more work for the next generation of population geneticists to deal with. So the work I've done, presented to you, is clearly not my own. The E-beta thalassemia work was pioneered by my mentor, Sir David Weatherall. He passed in 2018 December, and since then has been carried out ably by Professor Nancy Olivieri from University of Toronto. And from the beginning, of course, the original network was with Dr. Shantimali De Silva, a pediatrician from Kurunegala. And since then, several pediatricians from Kurunegala, including Dr. Vince Pereira, Nimal Katugaha, Mahinda Armbepola, Dayananda Bandara, and Jeffrey Nilam have been part of our group. This 20-year analysis would have never seen the light of the day without the help of Dr. Dilip Edirivira from our medical statistics unit from University of Kelaniya. So much of data, so much jumbled, and Dilip cracked it all for us. The sickle work was clearly the work of Dr. Tamal Darshana from Sri Jawadanapura Allied Health Science Faculty. And I wish to thank my friends and colleagues from the Ragama Thalassemia Network, if I may call it that, Professor Sachit Mettananda, Dr. Shiromi Pereira, Professor Senani Williams, Dr. Padmapani Padeniya, Dulani Kottachi, Aruni Hapangama, and also the lovely doctors of our unit, past as well as present. The technical staff, Mr. Lakshman Pereira, who has been with me from 2003 onwards, the Alpha Thalassemia man, Rexon Rodrigo, and my dedicated team of nursing staff, who is now conducting the screening of work, thalassemia work, in addition to their regular duties. Department of Medicine, Faculty of Medicine, Ragama, which I think is now the best department of medicine, which will be heavily contested by the others in the audience. Professor Janaka De Silva, who is my boss, who is actually the one who set me up with Professor David Weatherall. I'm truly grateful for that, always. And my dear friends Ranjan, Arjuna, Udaya, Shaluka, Madhunil, and last but not least, my greatest critic and my best ally, bionic woman from the department and at home, Shamila. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your patient listening. I hope you have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that insightful oration. With that, we are reaching the end of today's proceedings. I would like to invite the Honorary Joint Secretary of the College, Dr. Tushara Matthias, to propose the vote of thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Council of Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine, it is my pleasant duty and privilege to propose the vote of thanks at the inauguration of SIMCON 2021. At the outset, my sincere heartfelt gratitude goes out to our chief guest, General Sanjeeva Munasinghe, and our guest of honor this evening, Dr. Asela Gunawardena, for gracing the occasion amidst their busy work schedules. I would like to thank Professor George Abraham, the President of the American College of Physicians, for collaborating with the Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine and for agreeing to join as a guest of honor this evening, and for the continued support given to the SLCIM. I congratulate Professor Anuja Premawardena, our orator of Professor T. Varganam Oration 2021, for graciously accepting our invitation to deliver the oration and for inspiring the physicians and the researchers. Thank you, sir. At this point, I would like to express my gratitude to the scientific committee, organizing committee, and the resource persons, both overseas and in Sri Lanka, for agreeing to make this event fruitful. I would also like to thank all our chairpersons and moderators for agreeing to contribute to the conference. My sincere gratitude goes out to the panel of judges of the Best Publication Award, Professor Tilak Jayalat, Professor Tilak Veeraratne, Professor Arjuna Madagama, and Professor H.M.M. Herath, and the judges of the Most Innovative Service Innovation Project, Professor S.A.M. Kularatne and Professor Panduga Karunanayaka, and the judges of the free papers, Professor Tilak Veeraratne, Professor Panduga Karunanayaka, Professor Shanti Mendis, Dr. M. Raghunathan, and Dr. Harith Vimalratne for their valuable time. I would also like to thank our two editors, Dr. Madhuvanti Hettiarachi and Dr. Suranga Manilgama, and the Abstract Evaluation Committee headed by the editors and Professor H.M.M. Herath for the hard work done in finalizing the abstracts. We so far have had 4 successful pre-Congress workshops with an overwhelming response, and we have lined up an interesting line of talks over the next 2 days. A special note of thanks goes to the staff of the Department of Medicine at the University Hospital KDU and to Professor Senaka Rajapaksha and his staff at the PGIM for hosting the pre-Congress workshops. And to Dr. Randunu Disanayaka, our compeer this evening, and our volunteer medical students, Ms. Yasindri Jayawardena and Ms. Tisaka Lenapatirana, and our artwork developer, Dr. Milan Marakapuge and Mr. Dishan Fernando. A very special appreciation to all our service providers, Mr. Amal Ranavaka, the official photographer, Dr. Lasantha Malavagi of Lasana Flora, Delisha and the crew from Asia Tours, and the secretarial assistant by Dr. Madhusha Lianage and Ms. Darshi, and our printers Anand the Press, and Mr. Clifford and his staff at Cinnamon Grand. I would also like to extend my warm and sincere gratitude to all our sponsors who stood beside us amid the economic impact the pandemic had. I would especially like to thank by name our diamond sponsors, Cipla Pharmaceuticals, our platinum sponsors, GSK, Inventia, and George Stewart's Health, our gold sponsors, Boehringer Ingelheim, Getz, CCL, and Abbott, our silver sponsors, the Searle, Imedra Healthcare, Dr. Reddy's, Genix Pharma, Torrent, USV, Novartis, Novo Nordisk, Eli Lilly, Acme, Bago, and Servier. Our bronze sponsors, Truvic, Sidus, Hilton, Pharmevo, Sun Pharma, Sanofi Lanka, Calbe, Wockhardt, Signutra, Principal Healthcare UK, and IPCA. And our brass sponsors, Mitsubishi Tanabe and Merck. I would also like to extend a very big thank you to all our members of the medical fraternity, both senior and junior, who are joining us in person and virtually today, and all our distinguished guests, as without you, this event would have no meaning. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your presence here tonight, and we hope that you will enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. In the end, we would like to leave you with a lineup of mesmerizing songs performed by one of the upcoming singers in the country. He is also a final contestant at the popular reality singing competition, Voice Sri Lanka. He is our very own Harith Vijayaratne from the Faculty of Medicine, University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. Harith, the stage is all yours.
Are you still mine? I need you, your love. I need your love. Godspeed your love to me. Lonely rivers flow to the sea, to the sea, to the open arms of the sea. Yeah, lonely river sigh, wait for me, wait for me. I'll be coming home, wait for me. And oh, my love, my darling, I've hungered, hungered for your touch alone. Lonely time and time goes by so slowly, and time can do so much. Are you still mine? Your love, I need your love. Godspeed your love to Thank you so much. Sare piya vida, hemin sare piya vida, sumudu sayene sinidu ate, palamit situm seyotun, sumudu sayene sinidu ate. Malak namme, malak buemene, sinidu sukomene, ruin sene. Vilak namme, vilak buemene, nile induvere, dien hemin sare piya vida, sumudu sayene sinidu atirillen, palamit situm seyotun, sumudu sayene sinidu atirillen. you so much. අඳුරු කුටිය තුල දොරගුළුලාගෙන ගයන ගීතිකා යදින යාතිකා දෙවියන් හට නැසේ දෙවියන් හට නැසේ පොළව කොටන තැන පාර තනන තැන ගිනියම් මව්වේ මහවරුසාවේ දෙවියෝ වැඩ ඉන්නේ දෙවියෝ වැඩ ඉන්නේ බලන් කඩතුරා හැරදැසේ බලන් කඩතුරා හැරදැසේ සිනිදු සුවැති සලු සිරසින් හැරදා දූවිලි මඩ වැකි පිළිගත පලදා දෙවියන් රුව දක්නට හැකේ අඳුරු කුටිය තුල දොරගුළුලාගෙන ගයන ගීතිකා යටින යාතිකා දෙවියන් හට නැසේ දෙවියන් හට නැසේ පොළව කොටන තැන පාර තනන තැන ගිනියම් මව්වේ මහවරුසාවේ දෙවියෝ වැඩ ඉන්නේ දෙවියෝ වැඩ ඉන්නේ බලන් කඩතුරා හැරදැසේ බලන් කඩතුරා හැරදැසේ බලන් කඩතුරා හැරදැසේ බලන් කඩතුරා හැරදැසේ Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Charit. I think that young gentleman deserves another round of applause from all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we conclude the inauguration ceremony of the annual academic sessions 2021 of Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine. Please stand as the ceremonial procession will now leave the hall. And afterwards, please join for fellowship and dinner at the same premises. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.